The faucet in our kitchen had been dripping for 3 weeks. Every night, that steady ping-ping-ping against the stainless steel sink drove me crazy. Tonight was different, though. Tonight, I was actually grateful for the distraction. I crouched under the sink with my toolbox, listening to Ilara's voice drift from the living room. She was on another one of her late-night calls, the kind that had become routine over the past 2 months. Her laugh was different now, lighter, more musical. The kind of laugh she used to give me back when we first met at that coffee shop near her old office. "Oh, Rylan, you're terrible," she giggled into the phone. Aven Ventor, her boss, the guy who drove the white Tesla and wore suits that probably cost more than my monthly unemployment check. I'd met him exactly twice at company functions, and both times he'd looked at me like I was something stuck to his shoe. The wrench slipped in my hands, and I cursed under my breath. 3 months ago, I'd been a maintenance supervisor at the rail yard. Good job, decent pay, 20 years of steady work. Then the company decided to modernize, which apparently meant replacing guys like me with automated systems and college kids with tablets. "Can't wait for tonight," Ilara continued, her voice dropping to that sultry tone I remembered from our honeymoon. "I'll wear the red dress. You know, the one you like." The red dress. I'd bought her that dress for our anniversary last year. She'd worn it exactly once, to dinner with me, and spent the whole evening checking her phone. I finished tightening the connection and crawled out from under the sink. The dripping had stopped, but something else had started. A different kind of leak, one that couldn't be fixed with a wrench and some elbow grease. Ilara's tablet was charging on the kitchen counter, synced to her phone like everything else in our connected world. The screen lit up with a notification, and I glanced over without thinking. A calendar reminder. Special after party with R, 10 p.m., Suite 412. My hands were still greasy from the plumbing work, but they felt steady as I wiped them on the dish towel. Steady and cold. I'd always been good with my hands, good at fixing things. Maybe it was time to fix something else. "Pierce?" Ilara called from the living room. "Is everything okay in there?" "Just finished with the faucet," I called back, my voice surprisingly normal. "No more leaks." She appeared in the doorway, phone still pressed to her ear. At 37, she was still beautiful. Sharp cheekbones, auburn hair that caught the light just right, green eyes that used to look at me like I was the only person in the world. Now those eyes slid past me to check the time on the microwave. "I have to go," she said into the phone. "The company party starts in an hour and I still need to get ready." A pause, then that laugh again. "See you there." She hung up and looked at me with what I'd learned to recognize as her practiced smile, the one she used on clients and distant relatives. "How's the job hunt going?" she asked, already moving toward the bedroom. "Same as yesterday," I said. "Lots of applications, not many callbacks. Turns out being 40 and having calloused hands isn't what most companies are looking for these days." She paused at the bedroom door. For just a moment, something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe, or pity. Then it was gone. "You'll find something," she said. "You're smart, Pierce. Smarter than you give yourself credit for." Smart. Right. Smart enough to notice that our joint cloud account had been syncing some interesting photos lately. Smart enough to see that her late nights at the office coincided with location pings from the Meridian Hotel downtown. Smart enough to realize that the woman I'd been married to for 8 years was having an affair with her boss, but maybe not smart enough to do anything about it. Yet. "Have fun at the party," I said. She disappeared into the bedroom, and I heard the shower start running. I looked at her tablet again, still sitting on the counter, still synced to everything, still trusting me with access to her whole digital life. I'd always been good with technology, despite what people assumed about blue-collar guys. You had to be these days. The rail yard had been computerized for years before they laid me off. I knew my way around networks and databases and all the little digital breadcrumbs people left without thinking. Another notification popped up. A text from Rylan. Can't wait for tonight. Wear the red. I stared at the message for a long moment, then did something I'd never done before in 8 years of marriage. I scrolled up through their conversation history. What I found made my hands shake. Not with anger, that would come later. With something colder, more focused. The kind of feeling I used to get in the boxing ring when I was younger, right before I landed a knockout punch. They'd been planning this for weeks. The hotel room, the lies about late meetings, the jokes about her clueless husband, who was too busy feeling sorry for himself to notice anything. That last part stung, maybe because it was partially true. I heard the shower turn off and quickly put the tablet back where I'd found it. By the time Alara emerged from the bedroom in her red dress, my anniversary gift, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a beer and yesterday's newspaper, looking like the unemployed loser they apparently thought I was. "How do I look?" she asked, doing a little spin. "Beautiful," I said, and meant it. She was beautiful. Beautiful and faithless, and about to learn that her clueless husband wasn't quite as clueless as she thought. "Don't wait up," she said, grabbing her purse and keys. "These company things tend to run late." "I'm sure they do." She kissed my cheek, a dry, perfunctory peck, and headed for the door. I waited until I heard her car start and pull out of the driveway. Then I waited another 5 minutes, just to be sure. Then I picked up my phone and dialed a number I'd found in Ryland's company directory. "Hello?" The voice was crisp, professional, with just a hint of frost around the edges. "Aven Ventor?" "Yes, who is this?" "Pierce Eldrow, Alara's husband. I think we need to talk." There was a long pause. When she spoke again, her voice was different, interested. "About what exactly?" "About what our spouses are doing right now in Suite 412 at the Meridian Hotel." Another pause, longer this time. "I see," she said, finally. "And what exactly do you propose we do about it?" I smiled for the first time in months. A real smile, not the fake ones I'd been wearing lately. "I have an idea," I said. "But first, how do you feel about making an exchange?" Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The Meridian Hotel sat downtown like a glass and steel monument to everything I used to think I wanted. 20 floors of luxury suites, a rooftop bar that charged $15 for a beer, and a lobby full of people who looked like they'd never worried about unemployment in their lives. Aven Ventor was waiting for me in the parking garage, leaning against a silver BMW that probably cost more than I'd made in 2 years at the rail yard. She was smaller than I'd expected, maybe 5'4" in heels, but there was something about the way she held herself that made her seem taller. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her blue eyes were the color of winter ice. "You're Pierce," she said. It wasn't a question. "And you're the woman whose husband is currently making a fool of both of us." She smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Among other things, yes. You said you had a plan." I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I'd taken of Ilara's tablet screen. The text messages, the calendar entries, the location data. Her expression didn't change as she scrolled through them, but I saw her jaw tighten. "How long have you known?" she asked. "About 3 hours. You?" 6 weeks. She handed the phone back. "I hired a private investigator. Very thorough, very expensive, very discreet. Until now." "Why didn't you confront them?" She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Confront them? Pierce, may I call you Pierce? Confrontation is what people do when they want to save their marriages. I don't want to save mine. I want to end it. Spectacularly." I was starting to like Aven Ventor. "The company party is on the 20th floor," I said. Ryland's probably already made his excuses and slipped away. They think they're being clever, meeting in the same building. They think we're idiots, she corrected. Ryland's been using the company credit card to pay for the room. He actually thinks I don't check the statements. So, what's the plan? She reached into her purse and pulled out a key card. Suite 410. Right across the hall from their little love nest. I booked it this afternoon after you called. I stared at the key card. You want to spy on them? Oh, Pierce. Her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. I want to do so much more than that. 20 minutes later, we were in the elevator heading up to the 4th floor. Aven had changed clothes in her car. Gone was the business suit, replaced by a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She'd let her hair down too, and suddenly looked 10 years younger. You clean up nice, I said. So do you. I'd gone home and changed into the one good suit I owned, the one I'd worn to job interviews and funerals. It was a little tight around the shoulders. I'd put on some muscle since getting laid off, spending my days at Mickey's boxing gym instead of sitting around feeling sorry for myself. The elevator dinged softly as we reached the 4th floor. The hallway was empty, all thick carpet and muted lighting. Suite 412 was at the far end, and I could see light seeping out from under the door. They're in there, Aven whispered unnecessarily. We slipped into Suite 410, which was identical to the one across the hall. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a king-size bed, a sitting area with a couch and coffee table. Aven immediately went to the window and started adjusting her hair in the reflection. What are you doing? Getting ready for our photo shoot. She held up her phone. I hope you're photogenic, Pierce. We're about to become very famous. I was starting to understand her plan, and I had to admit it was brilliant. Simple, devastating, and completely legal. You want to make them think we're having an affair too. Not just think it, believe it, know it, the same way we know about them. She moved closer to me, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something expensive and dangerous. The question is, are you committed to this? Because once we start, there's no going back. I thought about Alara in her red dress, laughing at jokes about her clueless husband. I thought about 8 years of marriage and 20 years of steady work and all the ways life could change in an instant. I'm committed, I said. She reached up and loosened my tie, then unbuttoned the top button of my shirt. Her fingers were warm against my throat. Good. Now put your arms around me and try to look like you're enjoying yourself. The first photo was just us embracing by the window, the city lights twinkling behind us. It could have been innocent, 2 friends sharing a moment. But Aven was an expert at angles and lighting, and somehow she made it look intimate, dangerous. The second photo was taken on the bed. Nothing inappropriate, just the 2 of us lying close together, my hand on her face, her eyes closed like she was lost in the moment. It looked like something that should have been private. The third photo was the masterpiece. Aven had messed up her hair and smudged her lipstick. I'd lost the tie completely and unbuttoned my shirt halfway down. We were tangled together on the couch, and the camera angle made it look like we'd been interrupted in the middle of something passionate. Perfect, she said, reviewing the photos. Now comes the fun part. She opened her contacts and scrolled to a group chat labeled Ventor Industries Leadership Team. Her finger hovered over the send button. Last chance to back out, she said. Send it. She hit send, and immediately we heard a phone buzz from across the hall, then another, then what sounded like several phones all going off at once. The leadership team includes everyone at the party, Aven explained, including your wife. We waited. The buzzing from across the hall stopped, replaced by voices, muffled at first, then louder, then the sound of a door slamming open. They're coming, I said. Let them come. Footsteps in the hallway, fast and angry, a fist pounding on our door. Aven, open this door right now! Ryland's voice, loud enough to wake the whole floor. Aven looked at me and winked. Then she called out in a voice that sounded breathless and satisfied. "Just a minute. We're not quite finished in here." The pounding got louder. I heard Alara's voice now too, shrill and panicked. Pierce, what the hell are you doing?" "I think they're upset," I said. "Good. Let's not keep them waiting." Aven opened the door, and I got my first look at the devastation we'd caused. Ryland stood in the hallway in his underwear and an untucked shirt, his hair disheveled and his face red with rage. Behind him, Alara clutched a hotel bathrobe around herself, her red dress nowhere to be seen. "Hello, darling," Aven said to her husband, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Having a nice evening?" "You conniving witch," Ryland snarled. "This is some kind of setup." "Setup?" I stepped into view behind Aven, making sure they could see my unbuttoned shirt and messed up hair. "Ryland, buddy, I think you're confused. Aven and I are just two consenting adults having a private moment. Nothing wrong with that, right?" Alara stared at me like she'd never seen me before. "Pierce, this isn't... You're not... What? I'm not what, Alara? Not smart enough? Not successful enough? Not good enough for a woman like Aven?" I put my arm around Aven's waist and pulled her closer. Funny thing about that. Turns out she disagrees. The elevator dinged behind them, and suddenly, the hallway was full of people. The entire leadership team from the party, still in their formal wear, phones in hand, staring at the scene like it was a train wreck they couldn't look away from. "Oh my," said a woman I recognized as the company's HR director. "This is... unexpected." Ryland spun around to face the crowd, suddenly aware of how he looked standing in a hotel hallway in his underwear. "This isn't what it looks like." "Really?" Aven held up her phone, showing the photo we'd just sent to the group chat. "Because it looks exactly like what it looks like to me." I saw Alara's face crumple as the full scope of what was happening hit her. The photos, the crowd, the fact that her affair was now public knowledge. She looked at me with something that might have been desperation. "Pierce, please. We need to talk, privately." "I don't think so," I said. "I think we've said everything we need to say. Haven't we, sweetheart?" The last word was directed at Aven, who smiled and squeezed my hand. "Absolutely, darling. Though we should probably get back to our room. We have so much more to... discuss." The crowd in the hallway was growing. Word was spreading through the party upstairs, and people were coming down to see the show. I recognized faces from previous company events, executives, managers, administrative staff, all of them staring, whispering, taking photos with their phones. This would be all over social media within the hour. By morning, everyone in the city would know about the Ventor Industries leadership team's very public meltdown. "This is harassment," Ryland said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I'll have you both arrested." "For what?" Aven asked innocently. "Having consensual relations in a hotel room that I paid for? I don't think that's illegal, darling, unlike, say, using company funds to pay for your little rendezvous across the hall." Ryland's face went white. In the crowd, I saw the company's CFO pull out his phone and start typing rapidly. "Alara," I said, looking directly at my wife. "I hope it was worth it." Then Aven and I stepped back into our room and closed the door, leaving them standing in the hallway in their underwear, surrounded by their colleagues and the wreckage of their careers. Through the door, I could hear Ryland trying to explain, Alara crying, and the crowd buzzing with excitement and scandal. "Phase 1 complete," Aven said, settling onto the couch with a satisfied smile. "Phase 1?" I asked. "There's more?" Her smile turned predatory. "Oh, Pierce, we're just getting started." Mickey's boxing gym smelled like sweat, leather, and broken dreams. It was housed in a converted warehouse on the wrong side of downtown, the kind of place where guys like me went to hit things when the world got too complicated. I'd been coming here every day since the layoffs, partly to stay in shape and partly because Mickey didn't ask questions about why I needed to hit the heavy bag for 2 hours straight. It had been 3 days since the hotel incident, and the fallout was everything Aven had promised and more. The photos had gone viral on local social media. Your red dress scandal was trending, and someone had even made memes out of Rylan standing in the hallway in his underwear. The company's stock price had dropped 12%, and according to the news reports, the board was conducting an internal investigation into leadership conduct. I was working the speed bag when Rylan walked in. He looked terrible. His usually perfect hair was unkempt, his expensive suit was wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes that suggested he hadn't been sleeping well. He scanned the gym until he spotted me, then walked over with the kind of swagger that was probably supposed to be intimidating. "We need to talk," he said. I kept hitting the bag, left, right, left, right. The rhythm was soothing, meditative. "I don't think we do. You think you're clever, don't you? You and that witch I married. Think you pulled some kind of masterstroke. Left, right, left, right. I think I exposed 2 cheaters for what they are. Everything else is just consequences." He grabbed the speed bag to stop it moving, forcing me to look at him. "You destroyed my career, my reputation. 20 years of work, gone." 20 years? I stepped back and pulled off my gloves. "That's funny. I had 20 years at the rail yard. Know what I got for it? A cardboard box and a handshake. So forgive me if I don't have much sympathy for your situation. This is different. I built something. I earned my position." "You earned it?" I laughed, but there wasn't much humor in it. "Rylan, you've been sleeping with your employees and using company money to pay for hotel rooms. In most places, that's called harassment and embezzlement." His face flushed red. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot Aven had sent me that morning. "This is from the company's expense system. 17 hotel charges in the last 3 months, all billed to client entertainment. Funny thing is, the dates match up perfectly with Alara's calendar entries for your little meetings." He stared at the screen, and I watched the color drain from his face. "The board's gonna love this," I continued. "Along with the other documents Aven's been collecting. Did you know she has access to your personal accounts? Apparently, you never changed the passwords after you got married. Sloppy, but then again, you never were as smart as you thought you were. You can't prove anything. We don't have to prove anything. We just have to raise questions, create doubt, make the board wonder what else you've been hiding." I leaned closer. "How's that stock price doing, by the way?" He took a swing at me then, a wild, clumsy punch that telegraphed itself from a mile away. I stepped aside easily and watched him stumble past me into the heavy bag. "Careful there, champ," I said. "Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself." Mickey appeared from behind the front desk, a towel in his hands and a scowl on his weathered face. He was pushing 70, but still looked like he could take apart guys half his age. "Problem here, Pierce?" "No problem, Mickey. Mr. Ventor was just leaving." Rylan straightened his suit jacket and tried to recover some dignity. "This isn't over." "Yeah, it is," I said. "You just don't know it yet." He stalked out of the gym, and Mickey shook his head. "Rich boys," he muttered. "Think they can solve everything with money or threats." "Some problems require a different approach," I agreed. That evening I met Aven at a coffee shop downtown. She'd chosen a table in the back corner, away from the windows and the other customers. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, the first time I'd seen her dressed casually, and she looked younger, more approachable. But her eyes still had that predatory gleam. "How did it go with Rylan?" she asked. "About as well as expected. He threatened me, tried to punch me, stormed off when that didn't work. Pretty standard rich guy tantrum." "Good. That means he's desperate." She slid a folder across the table. "These should make him even more desperate." I opened the folder and found myself looking at bank statements, credit card bills, and what appeared to be internal company documents. How did you get these? I told you, Rylan never changed his passwords. Amazing what you can learn about someone when you have access to their digital life. She pointed to a highlighted section on one of the statements. Look at this. 3 payments to something called discreet companions over the last 6 months, $5,000 each. I stared at the entries. What's discreet companions? Exactly what it sounds like. High-end escort service. Very exclusive, very expensive, very illegal in this state. Her smile was sharp enough to cut steel. Apparently, your wife wasn't his only extracurricular activity. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Not jealousy. That ship had sailed 3 days ago. Something more like disgust. Ilara knows about this? I doubt it. She probably thinks she's special. The only one. Aven's voice carried a note of contempt. Women like your wife, they always think they're the exception, that they're different from all the others. What do you want to do with this information? Same thing we did with the hotel photos. Make it public. Let the consequences sort themselves out. I closed the folder and slid it back to her. There's something else we need to talk about. Ilara's been calling me, texting. She wants to meet, to work things out. And I think we should let her. Aven raised an eyebrow. That seems unwise. Unless you're having second thoughts about our arrangement. No second thoughts. But I think it's time for phase 2 of our plan. Which is? I leaned forward, lowering my voice. We make them think they can fix this. Give them hope. Let them believe they can somehow salvage their careers, their reputations, their marriages. And then we take that hope away. Aven's smile was beautiful and terrible. You're more devious than I gave you credit for, Pierce Eldrow. I'm a fast learner. 2 hours later, I was sitting in my car outside our house, watching Ilara through the living room window. She was pacing back and forth, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing frantically. Probably talking to a lawyer, or maybe a crisis management consultant. Rich people always thought they could buy their way out of problems. My phone buzzed with a text from Aven. Documents uploaded to company whistleblower portal. Anonymous tip sent to local news outlets. Should be interesting morning tomorrow. I typed back. Phase 2 starts now. Then I got out of the car and walked up to my own front door, ready to give my wife exactly what she thought she wanted. The Riverside Country Club was exactly the kind of place I'd expected Aven to choose for her charity gala. All marble columns and crystal chandeliers, with a view of the river through floor-to-ceiling windows. The kind of place where a beer cost $20, and everyone spoke in hushed tones about their stock portfolios and vacation homes. I adjusted my rented tuxedo and checked my watch. 8:30 p.m. The gala had been running for an hour, which meant most of the guests were on their second or third drink and feeling sociable. Perfect timing for what I had planned. The invitation had been Aven's idea, of course, a last-minute addition to the guest list for her annual children's literacy fundraiser. Bring your wife, she'd suggested, with that sharp smile of hers. I think it's time we all had a proper conversation. Ilara had been suspicious at first. 3 weeks had passed since our reconciliation. 3 weeks of careful manipulation and false hope. I'd played the part of the wounded husband perfectly, hurt but willing to forgive, angry but ready to work things out. She'd bought every lie, every carefully crafted moment of vulnerability. I don't understand why Aven Ventor would invite us, she'd said that morning, frowning at the elegant invitation. After everything that happened, maybe she wants to apologize, I'd suggested. Make peace. Move forward. Or maybe it's a trap. She was smarter than I'd given her credit for, but not smart enough. Then we don't go, I'd said with a shrug. But it might be our only chance to show people that we're working things out, that we're stronger than the gossip and the scandal. That had convinced her. Ilara had always cared more about appearances than reality. Now, standing in the marble foyer of the country club, I watched her work the room like the professional she was. She'd chosen a conservative black dress for the occasion, nothing flashy or attention-grabbing. Her hair was pulled back in a simple bun, and she wore minimal jewelry. The picture of respectability, of a woman who'd made mistakes, but was trying to do better. If only they knew. "Pierce!" Aven appeared at my elbow, resplendent in a silver gown that probably cost more than my car. "So glad you could make it. And Alara looks lovely tonight." "She does," I agreed. "Thank you for inviting us." Of course. I thought it was time we all moved past our misunderstandings. She gestured toward the ballroom. "Shall we? I'm about to give my speech." The ballroom was packed with the city's elite. Politicians, business leaders, socialites, and journalists. I recognized several faces from the news. The mayor, a few city council members, the publisher of the local newspaper. Everyone who mattered in our little corner of the world was here tonight, including Rylan. He stood near the bar, looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. The past 3 weeks hadn't been kind to him. The board of directors had placed him on administrative leave pending their investigation, and the local news outlets had been running stories about corporate misconduct and abuse of company resources. His lawyer had managed to keep the escort service payments out of the papers, but rumors were spreading. He saw me watching him and raised his glass in a mocking salute. I smiled and nodded back. Let him think he still had some power here. It would make what came next even more satisfying. Aven took the stage as the lights dimmed. She looked radiant under the spotlights, every inch the successful philanthropist and community leader. "Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight," she began. "As many of you know, the Children's Literacy Foundation has been my passion project for the past 5 years. We've built libraries, funded reading programs, and helped thousands of children discover the joy of books." Polite applause rippled through the crowd. I found Alara near the front, her attention focused on Aven with professional interest. "But tonight," Aven continued, "I want to talk about a different kind of literacy. The ability to read people, to see past the masks we all wear, the lies we tell ourselves and others." The applause died away. Something in her tone had changed, become sharper, more dangerous. "You see, I've learned something important over the past few weeks. I've learned that the people we trust most, the ones we let closest to us, are often the ones most capable of betrayal." Murmurs started in the crowd. I saw Alara frown, confusion creeping across her face. Near the bar, Rylan had gone very still. "I've learned that a husband of 15 years can lie to your face while stealing from your joint accounts, that he can claim to love you while paying for the services of other women, that he can stand in a room full of your friends and colleagues and pretend to be the victim when his own actions have brought shame on your family name." The murmurs turned to gasps. Every eye in the room was on Aven now, and she was just getting started. "I've also learned that some people will do anything to advance their careers. They'll sleep with their bosses, lie to their spouses, and betray the trust of everyone around them. They'll smile to your face while plotting behind your back, and they'll play the victim when their schemes are exposed." Alara had gone pale. She was looking around the room now, seeing the stares, the whispers, the phones coming out to record what was happening. "But most importantly," Aven said, her voice carrying clearly through the suddenly silent ballroom, "I've learned that sometimes the best way to deal with liars and cheaters is to give them exactly what they deserve. Public exposure, social consequences, the kind of humiliation they've earned through their own actions." She gestured toward the large screen behind her, and suddenly the room was filled with images. The hotel photos from 3 weeks ago blown up to enormous size, Rylan in his underwear, Alara in her bathrobe. The two of them caught in their moment of shame, but that wasn't all. There were other photos too. Screenshots of text messages, bank statements, expense reports, the escort service payments, highlighted in bright red. Email exchanges between Rylan and Alara, planning their meetings, joking about their spouses. Ladies and gentlemen, Aven announced, I present to you the true faces of Aven Ventor and Pierce Eldrow. Liars, cheaters, and thieves, all dressed up in expensive clothes and fake smiles. The room erupted. Cameras flashed, voices rose, and I watched as 15 years of carefully constructed reputations crumbled in real time. Rylan was pushing through the crowd toward the stage, his face twisted with rage. You can't do this. This is slander, libel. Actually, Aven said calmly, it's evidence. All obtained legally, all documented thoroughly, all completely factual. My lawyers have been very thorough. Ilara was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks as she tried to push toward the exit. But the crowd was too thick, too interested in the spectacle to let her pass easily. Pierce, she called out, spotting me near the back of the room. Pierce, please, help me. I looked at her for a long moment. My wife of 8 years, the woman I'd loved and trusted and built a life with. The woman who'd betrayed me, mocked me, thrown away everything we'd built together for a few months of excitement with her boss. I'm sorry, Ilara, I said, loud enough for the people around me to hear. I don't think I can help you with this one. Then I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there in her conservative black dress, surrounded by the wreckage of her reputation and the consequences of her choices. Outside, the night air was cool against my face. I could hear the chaos continuing inside, voices raised, cameras clicking, the sound of a scandal that would dominate local news for weeks to come. My phone buzzed with a text from Aven. Phase 3 complete. How does it feel? I typed back, like justice. But even as I sent the message, I knew this wasn't really about justice. It was about revenge, pure and simple. The kind of cold, calculated revenge that left everyone involved damaged and changed. And I was surprised to discover that I was completely fine with that. The parking garage beneath the country club was a concrete maze of shadows and echoing footsteps. I'd made it halfway to my car when I heard someone running behind me, dress shoes slapping against the polished floor. Pierce, wait! I turned to see Rylan jogging toward me, his tuxedo jacket flapping open, his bow tie hanging loose around his neck. He looked like a man who'd just watched his entire world collapse, which wasn't far from the truth. We need to talk, he said, breathing hard. I think you've said enough for one evening. This is insane. You can't just destroy people's lives because your feelings got hurt. I laughed, but there wasn't much humor in it. Hurt feelings? Rylan, you stole my wife, used company money to pay for hotel rooms, and apparently have a standing account with an escort service? I didn't destroy your life. You did that all by yourself. She came to me, he said desperately. Ilara. She was the one who started it. She was unhappy, looking for something more, and You just took advantage of the situation, like you always do. He was close enough now that I could see the sweat beading on his forehead, smell the alcohol on his breath. Close enough to be dangerous if he decided to do something stupid. You think you've won, he said. You and that vindictive witch upstairs. But this isn't over. I have resources, connections. I can make your life very difficult. More difficult than it already is. I'm unemployed, my marriage is over, and I'm living in a one-bedroom apartment above a Chinese restaurant. What exactly are you going to take away from me? Your freedom. His smile was ugly, desperate. You think what you did tonight was legal? Harassment, stalking, invasion of privacy? I'll have you arrested. For what? Taking photos in a hotel room I paid for? Exposing financial documents that Aven had legal access to as your wife? Everything we did was completely above board, Rylan. My lawyer made sure of that. Your lawyer? He blinked, confused. You can't afford a lawyer. Aven can. Amazing what you can accomplish when you have someone with resources on your side. I saw understanding dawn in his eyes, followed quickly by rage. You planned this. All of it. The hotel, the photos, tonight. You manipulated everything. I adapted to circumstances. There's a difference. He lunged at me then, all pretense of civilization gone. But 3 weeks of daily workouts at Mickey's gym had left me in better shape than I'd been in years, while Ryland's idea of exercise was probably a round of golf at the country club. I sidestepped his clumsy rush and watched him stumble into the side of a parked Mercedes. He bounced off the car's door and spun around, his face flushed with embarrassment and fury. "You want to do this here?" I asked, pulling off my tuxedo jacket and hanging it carefully on a nearby car's side mirror. "Fine, but you should know I used to box, semi-professionally, before I got married and settled down and started pretending to be civilized." He came at me again, throwing wild punches that had no technique behind them. I blocked the first 2 and let the third one graze my shoulder, then stepped inside his guard and hit him once in the solar plexus. Not hard enough to cause serious damage, just hard enough to fold him in half and send him gasping to his knees. "Stay down," I advised. "This doesn't have to get worse." But Ryland had never been smart about knowing when he was beaten. He grabbed a tire iron from someone's roadside emergency kit and swung it at my head. I ducked under the swing and came up with an uppercut that caught him on the point of his chin. He dropped the tire iron and sat down hard on the concrete, his eyes unfocused. "Now stay down," I said. Footsteps echoed through the garage, and I turned to see Aven approaching with 2 security guards in tow. She'd changed out of her silver gown into jeans and a sweater, but she still looked like she owned the world. "Gentlemen," she said to the security guards, "I believe my husband has been drinking too much tonight. Could you please help him to his car and make sure he gets home safely?" The guards looked at Ryland, sitting dazed on the concrete with a rapidly swelling jaw, then at me with my rumpled shirt and scraped knuckles. "Should we call the police, ma'am?" one of them asked. "Oh, I don't think that's necessary," Aven said smoothly. "Just a misunderstanding between old friends. Isn't that right, darling?" The last word was directed at Ryland, who managed a weak nod. The guards helped him to his feet and escorted him toward the exit. I watched them go, then turned to find Aven studying me with those ice-blue eyes. "Feel better?" she asked. "A little? Good, because we're not finished yet." She led me to her BMW and we drove through the quiet streets toward my apartment. The city looked different at night, smaller, more manageable, like a problem that could be solved with the right approach and enough determination. "The photos and documents will be all over social media by morning," Aven said as we stopped at a red light. "The news outlets will pick it up by afternoon. By the end of the week, everyone in the city will know exactly what kind of people Ryland and Alara really are." "And then what?" "And then they live with the consequences. Ryland will lose his job, probably face criminal charges for the misuse of company funds. Alara will find it very difficult to get hired anywhere in her field. Their reputations are finished." "What about us?" She glanced over at me. "What about us? Do we just go back to our separate lives? Pretend none of this happened?" "I don't know," she said honestly. I hadn't thought that far ahead. I was too focused on making them pay for what they did. We pulled up in front of my building, a converted warehouse in the arts district that had seen better days. The neon sign for the Chinese restaurant on the ground floor flickered intermittently, casting red and blue shadows on the sidewalk. "Not exactly the country club," I said. "I like it. It's honest." I got out of the car and leaned down to the driver's side window. "Thank you, Aven, for everything. I couldn't have done this without you." "Yes, you could have. You're stronger than you think, Pierce Eldrow. Smarter, too. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." She drove away, leaving me standing on the sidewalk in my rumpled tuxedo, watching her taillights disappear into the night. Upstairs in my small apartment, I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat by the window, looking out at the city lights. My phone was buzzing constantly. Texts, calls, social media notifications. The scandal was already spreading, just as Aven had predicted. I thought about Alara, probably sitting in some lawyer's office right now, trying to figure out how to salvage her career. I thought about Rylan, nursing his bruised jaw and his wounded pride. I thought about the look on their faces when those photos had appeared on the screen, when their carefully constructed lies had been exposed for everyone to see. I should have felt guilty, should have felt some remorse for the destruction we'd caused, the lives we'd ruined. Instead, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: satisfaction, the kind of deep, bone-level contentment that came from a job well done, a problem solved, a wrong made right. My phone rang, and I saw Ilara's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. On the fourth call, I finally answered. "Hello, Ilara. Pierce." Her voice was small, broken. "Please, we need to talk." "I don't think we do. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, and I know I hurt you. But we can fix this. We can work it out." "Can we? Can we really?" I took a sip of bourbon, savoring the burn. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you made your choice 3 months ago. You chose Rylan over me. You chose lies over truth. You chose to throw away 8 years of marriage for a few exciting nights with your boss. It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Ilara? Help me understand." Silence on the other end of the line. Then, quietly, I felt invisible, like I was disappearing, becoming nothing but your unemployed husband's wife. Rylan made me feel important again, valued. "So you decided to have an affair?" "I decided to feel alive again." I stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the empty street below. "And now? How do you feel now?" "Like my life is over." "Your old life is over," I corrected. "The life where you could lie and cheat and face no consequences. But you can build a new one, somewhere else, with someone else, just not with me." "Pierce, please." "Goodbye, Ilara." I hung up and turned off the phone. Then I finished my bourbon and went to bed, sleeping better than I had in months. Outside, the city hummed with the quiet energy of secrets being revealed and consequences being faced. And for the first time in a long time, I was exactly where I belonged. The story was over. The revenge was complete. And I was finally, truly free.